USS Midway. Right over here, Midway Museum. And then off in the distance, there's a really cool aircraft carrier that is actually in service by the US Navy. Got the American flag here. It's pretty cool. So, hopefully we get to see some whales. And we're finally moving. We got the Coast Guard helicopter up there. The very same helicopter that was here when I was a kid. It's really cool to see that. They're going out to sea.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome aboard the flagship Marietta for our afternoon whale watch cruise. I want to take the next few minutes just to introduce you to a few safety announcements as well as some general housekeeping rules. So if you listen to nothing else I say for the next 3 hours, I'm going to need your attention just for the next 3 minutes. So first off, we really only have one rule aboard this boat. If you've ever been out on a boat before, you will have heard of this rule. We call it the 3 points of contact rule. That means that any time you're on your feet moving around the vessel, you need to keep 3 points of contact.
Okay. I am apparently breaking all the rules.
It's not too rough offshore today, we're just looking at about 4 foot swell, but that definitely does mean as you are moving around the boat, any time you're on your feet.
Safety is #1 priority, as Crazy Russian Hacker says.
That means there's no running, no jumping, and absolutely no standing on top of these benches, no kneeling up on the benches, no standing on top of a railing or any other structure. We want to return you folks back to the dock in roughly the same shape we picked you up this afternoon. Other safety announcements we have, or other announcements to let you folks be aware of, we have no smoking on board the flagship Marietta, including your vapes and your e-cigarettes. Let's give a wave to our sister ship, San Diego, taking you out on a wonderful harbour tour. The more fish you have, the more whales, the more birds, the more dolphins you have as well.
There's dolphins out there.
So we're kind of getting ourselves situated in here, getting ourselves settled in. When you see their tails, oftentimes you don't see the whale again for a few minutes. As I say, they take their breaths and dive down deeper, and they continue their daily lives underwater. But right now, you can quite clearly see out here, just in front of us at our 12:15, a sort of smooth mark on the ocean. There she is. Brilliant. Look in line with the ship on the horizon. If you haven't seen the whale, there is a ship on the horizon, or directly in front of this pelican. This whale is still up at the surface here. It's going to blow again in the next 10 or 20 seconds. And as I say, you can clearly see these tail marks of the whale behind it. You can see these smooth patches of ocean. See these kind of slick marks out to our right hand side? We call these the footprint of the whale, or the footprint of the whale. Back in the days of whaling, it was believed to be bad luck to drive the bow of your ship through the footprints of the whale. It would be a disastrous omen for the rest of your trip. In Hawaii, these patches are called the puka of the whale, and they're actually believed to be a portal between the world of whales and the world of man. So keep your eyes out here. Now about our 1 o'clock, 1:30, as we're drawing up level to the whale here. Should be along our right hand side. Again, if you can kind of see where I'm pointing, see where my arm is going, around our 1:30 position. That's where the whale should pop up again. And keep your eyes out here. It looks like we might well have two animals here. We saw one of them fluke up. That means it lifted its tail out of the water. Dolphins and killer whales, they travel solitarily. The main reason we will see two whales together is because it's a mother and her brand new baby. So we're going to keep our eyes really obliging whale. Check out, we might see another fluke up here. Very, very nice to see. I think she might even be looking at a husband and wife as big whales. Unfortunately, whales are notoriously promiscuous. Both the females and the males will have multiple partners in a season, so they don't tend to hook up and travel back together. Whales escorting each other back up to the feeding grounds. There is safety in numbers. Out here, these whales are vulnerable to predators such as sharks and especially killer whales. We have a pod of mammal-eating killer whales out here that frequent these waters. And one of their favourite snacks, unfortunately, are baby grey whales. So that is a good reason that we have two adults travelling together, escorting this baby up to its first season on the feeding grounds. When they get up there to those feeding grounds, the adults will be eating about 1 ton of food every single day. It sounds like a lot to us, but if you figure it's a 40-ton animal, it's about 2% of its body weight every day. Something which I know I'm capable of eating 2% of my body weight every day, especially if you're on vacation, something like that. Back in the days of whaling, grey whales were called devil fish. It was thought that whales were fish, or a lot of the whale fisheries determined them to be fish. And they were called devil fish because it was known that the female whales, the mothers of the babies, would defend their babies to the death. Now, there aren't many mammals you can say that about. Humans are pretty much the only ones I know that will defend their offspring to the death. Most other mammals, you think about a deer, an antelope, something like that, they will abandon their babies to make their own way out of a bad situation. Whales do not do that. Grey whales do not do that. They are amazingly good mothers, defending their babies to the death. So that is why they became known as devilfish during the days of whaling. Unfortunately, the whalers knew this. They knew that if they could capture the baby whale first, then the mom would come in, she'd come in thrashing her tail. Oftentimes she would raise the tail above the boat, she would smash it down on the whaling boat, splintering it into smithereens. The whalers would go flying out, but if they were lucky, they could actually harpoon the mother while they kept the baby in check, and then they would take with them 2 prize whales. Thankfully, that is not something that happens to our eastern Pacific population anymore, but unfortunately in the western Pacific, around the coast of Japan, those kind of islands, they are still heavily hunted out there, so much so that there are only about 300 individual members of the western Pacific stock of grey whales. And of course in the Atlantic Ocean, they were hunted to extinction. They haven't been seen there for 200 years. Although I'm sure some of you fellow whaleheads on board know that a couple of weeks ago they spotted a couple of grey whales off the coast of Nantucket, which is where I work my summer job. I work out on a feeding ground for humpback whales out there every summer. And we were pretty stunned to see a couple of grey whales in the Atlantic Ocean. The first time for 200 years they have been spotted. And we don't think that that's part of the Atlantic stock that has somehow managed to survive on their own. Actually, it's kind of a bit more complicated than that. The idea is that a couple of grey whales from this Pacific Ocean made their way up through the Arctic, up around the top of the globe, something which I'm sure you know shouldn't be possible. That Northwest Passage should be fully packed with pack ice. No animals should be able to make their way underwater through that area, so it is unfortunately a sign of climate change. The ice is melting there, there are deep gaps in it, so it's thought that these grey whales took advantage of that gap in the ice and made their way around to the Atlantic Ocean. So we definitely find ourselves on whale time here. You folks are getting used to it now. You know that the whales take a series of breaths up at the surface, just 2, 3, 4 breaths. They are able to survive on those breaths for about 8 or 9 minutes each time they go down. Whales really are remarkably efficient breathers. They make use of every molecule of oxygen in their body. With every exhalation you see, the whale is able to get rid of about 90% of the stale air in its lungs. Very different from humans. We tend to breathe from the top of our lungs. We're quite shallow breathers. We exchange about the top 25%, about a quarter, 1/4 of the air in our lungs, unless you do a big yoga breath or a big belly breath for meditation. We get nowhere near to getting rid of 90% of the stale air in our lungs. These whales, of course, don't live surrounded by water, they don't live surrounded by air, they don't have that luxury, so they really need to get rid of all the old air and then take a nice big breath. Probably just about 2 months old at this point. So nice to see brand new life out here in the Pacific Ocean. Change of direction here with these whales. I mentioned this wasn't like a husband and wife, I mentioned these weren't like best friends, but the action we are seeing up in front of us is quite indicative of an activity, maybe not such a child-safe activity, but there is an activity going on. So keep your eyes out here about 1 o'clock. You'll notice they change direction, you'll notice they're kind of now circling each other. It's coming up to the end now, so these guys are getting the last bit in as they can. Should be around our 2 o'clock now. Hopefully get some good looks for everyone on board, and then I think we're going to have to start to peel our way out of here and make our way back home. just the early days of sailing. Things coming down from the coast.
There we go. How's that for dolphins? Wow. Wow. I have never seen these in my life before.
Really nice. We're going to try and get some looks at these dolphins. We're going to try and curve the boat around, try and encourage them to come and pay us another visit. Wonderful, they're out in front of us, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. In fact, they're as far as I can look over as well. 1 o'clock here. Wow. The whales will come up again at our 11:45.